On this vast planet, there are still places so strange that people think they can't exist. From surreal stone pillars to rivers flowing through historical scars, each place is a secret that has never been told. These lands are not on the tour, but hidden, waiting for those curious and brave enough to step off the beaten path. Let's start the journey to discover the hidden wonders that the world seems to deliberately keep for itself. Located in the heart of Turkey, Pamukkale appears like a strange dream, where rocks flow like water, and water turns into light. The white steps, created by thousands of years of calcium deposits from hot mineral springs, are stacked on top of each other like folds of a natural silk. Under the sunlight, they not only sparkle like snow but also exude a surreal look, making people wonder if they are lost in reality or mythology. Walking barefoot on those steps, the feeling is not of traveling, but of walking through an ancient memory, where rocks and water tell the story of time. Above the mineral fields are the ruins of the ancient city of Hierapolis, where ancient people came to heal and meditate. When the sun sets, the sunlight dyes the stone steps in a rose-gold color. Pamukkale is not only beautiful, it becomes a whisper of the earth, reminding people that true beauty does not need explanation, just to be silently felt. If Pamukkale is a gentle whisper of light and water, then Parque Nacional Triglav in Slovenia is a quiet symphony of rocks, wind, and memories. Hidden deep in the Julian Alps, this oldest national park in Europe does not need to be ostentatious to make the heart flutter. Here, Mount Triglav stands tall like a guardian of the nation's soul, between ancient ice valleys and sacred forests covered in morning mist. Every step on the trail is a journey through time, where the stones still bear the footprints of ancient shepherds, and the cold stream whispers silent stories. When the sun sets, the last rays of the day shine through the pine trees, drawing thin golden streaks like memories. Triglav is no longer a park. It is a place to remember, to stop, and to breathe with the primal pulse of the earth. To come to Triglav is to realize there are lands that do not need to be discovered, but to be revered. From the icy peaks of Triglav, a small stream weaves through moss and rocks and gradually becomes a liquid masterpiece. That is the Soča River, the emerald of Slovenia. The color of the water here cannot be described with a single word. Sometimes it is transparent turquoise. Sometimes it is a brilliant jade color, as if it has just flowed from the sky. The river starts as a whisper, but quickly becomes a powerful song, rushing through canyons, boulders, and ancient forests. The water is so clear that the fish seem to float in the air, and the wooden bridges that span the river seem to connect the past and the present. But this place is not just beautiful. It has witnessed tragedy. The Soča front during World War I, when the silence was broken by artillery fire. Today, the Soča still flows, not to forget, but to forgive. It seems to carry with it both the memory and the promise that nature, though wounded, can always heal with its own beauty. As the Soča melts into the ground, the journey continues to a completely different world, where the sky is no longer above, but below. This is Salar de Uyuni, the world's greatest and most surreal salt flat, nestled quietly in Bolivia's Altiplano Plateau. At over 3,600 meters, the Earth stretches out like a giant mirror, reflecting the universe in every drop of rain. In the dry season, it is a white ocean, silent and dazzling, as if the world had just been remade from light. When the rain comes, the earth dissolves into the sky, where clouds float beneath your feet and you walk in nothingness. Here are no trees, no rivers, no sounds, just you, the sky, and yourself. This was once the bottom of a prehistoric lake, now a place where time has turned to stone and space has disappeared. Uyuni is not a destination to explore, but a place to disappear, to be still and hear the echoes of your soul in the vast, overwhelming silence. And as the mirror of Uyuni closes, the journey opens up in another direction, more strange, more distant, as if we were stepping off Earth without even realizing it. Between the wild Arabian Sea and the hot, salty wind, the island of Socotra appears like a lost piece of another planet. This is a place where nature dreams in a language no one has ever learned, where dragon blood trees stretch their branches up into the sky like fossilized umbrellas, and succulent bushes twist into surreal shapes. On this island, more than a third of the flora cannot be found anywhere else. There are no resorts, no roads, no cars, just cliffs, clear lakes hidden in canyons, and winds that whisper in the language of 1,000 years. Socotra does not welcome, nor does it hide. It just stands there, lonely and magnificent, waiting for those quiet enough to feel its unnamed beauty. If Socotra is where the earth dreams in its own way, then Svalbard is where time stands still to quietly observe all dreams. Located between mainland Norway and the North Pole, this icy archipelago is not a place of sweetness, but a realm of harshness and silence, where light and darkness share the seasons, and where cold is not just a temperature, but a state of the universe. Here, Icebergs rise like stone cathedrals, and glaciers creep slowly as if whispering to the earth in the most ancient language. In winter, the sun disappears for months, leaving the sky to be illuminated by the aurora borealis, the light of a dancing soul. Beneath the permafrost, the global seed vault lies dormant, a silent promise of humanity in a frozen world. Svalbard is not for the hasty, nor does it need praise. It simply exists, vast and silent, as an ancient witness to what we have forgotten. Solitude can also be eternal beauty. If Svalbard is where time freezes and silence becomes eternal, then Kyoto is where time melts in every whiff of incense and every step echoes a millennium. Nestled in the moss-covered hillsides and ancient maple forests of western Japan, Kyoto's temples do not need to be tall to be overwhelming. They just gently breathe out their sacredness in wood, stone, and silence. At Kinkakuji, the golden pavilion reflects on the calm surface of a lake like a sparkling dream of time. Meanwhile, Ginkakuji, the silver pavilion, is lost in a Zen garden where white sand is raked into waves like frozen moonlight. But the soul of Kyoto is not in its grandiose buildings. It lives in the smallest corners, a humble water basin under the eaves, the wind chimes ringing the torii gate, or a red leaf falling, just when you are no longer thinking about anything. Kyoto does not ask you to admire. It only invites you to stop, to breathe slowly, to feel, and to remember that stillness can be deeper than any prayer. Leaving the meditative silence of Kyoto, we enter a landscape of stunning contrasts, where the wind howls like ancient oaths and the rocks rise like fossilized gods. This is Torres del Paine, the wild heart of Patagonia, where Chile's earth and sky break apart into glaciers, jade lakes, and granite towers that stand like pillars of the world. Here, there is no music but the howling of the wind through the valley, the distant crackling of ice, or the cautious footsteps of guanacos crossing the wild grasslands. The clouds don't drift. They run, swirl, break, and then come together in an unruly dance of air. Torres del Paine doesn't invite. It challenges. It makes you feel so small that you want to cry, and then it makes you strong just to stand before its beauty. And as the sunset reddens the three great stone towers, you understand that there are places not to be visited, but to bow down to. Because nature here doesn't need you to explore, it needs you to respect. After the fierce winds and majesty of Torres del Paine, we stand before a place that both challenges reason and awakens the deepest instincts. Trolltunga, the tongue of the giants. A bold rock jutting into the sky at an altitude of more than 700 meters above Lake Ringadalsvatnet, western Norway. There are no fences, no shortcuts, just an arduous journey through snowy forests, rocky hills, and mist to reach the edge. But when you stand there, between earth and sky, between fear and freedom, you will feel like you have surpassed yourself. Legend has it that trolls once roamed these hills until the sunlight turned them to stone. But standing on Trolltunga, one does not think of legends, but of heartbeats, of breath swept away by the cold wind, of the moment when everything in life becomes small. This place is not a destination, but the boundary between the familiar and the unimaginable. And then, when the heart still beats with the wind on the edge of Trolltunga, the journey takes us to another world. Not much higher, but close to the sky in a completely different way. Vinicunca, also known as Peru's Rainbow Mountain, does not explode like thunder, not fierce like a snowstorm, but silently paints a symphony of colors with the breath of the earth. Each layer of rock curves like waves, glowing with natural colors. Vermilion, turmeric yellow, green, purple. Not by the hand of the artist, but by millions of years of silent movement of minerals underground. To reach Vinicunca, we must overcome an altitude of more than 5,000 meters, where the air is as thin as fragile faith. But when the bands of color appear through the mist, people no longer just breathe with their lungs, but with admiration. This is not just a mountain. It is the earth's prayer to the sky, written in stone, in wind, and in a silence so deep that it turns all the noise in the heart into dust. After the eyes have had their fill of the sacred colors of Vinicunca, we continue to listen to another sound of the earth, deeper, more intense, but also enchanting. The deep breathing of Mount Bromo, the beating heart of the island of Java, Indonesia. The dawn here does not come gently, but rises from the sea of black sand, like the ashes of a half-burned dream. When the sun is still hovering behind the horizon, the crater is already hissing white columns of smoke, like an ancient god just waking up. Everything here is strangely silent, not because of the lack of sound, but because nature is so strong that people can only listen. The Tengar people, who live on the mountainside, still make annual offerings into the crater as a prayer to the afterlife. Bromo is not a place to look at, but a place to feel the untamed primal power. It is where you realize there are lands that are not only beautiful, but also alive, and you are just a small heartbeat in that majestic breath. And when the echoes of the Bromo volcano gradually subside in the wind, the journey takes us to a pristine island where time seems to have never touched. Sumba, the rough gem of Indonesia. Not as noisy as Bali, not as bustling as Jakarta, Sumba quietly stretches out under the golden sunlight, between vast savanna hills and steep cliffs kissing the ocean. Here, life is not rushed. People still live in conical-roofed villages, preserving ancestral customs as if preserving the island's soul. Every year, the Pasola festival takes place, where horsemen charge into each other on the open fields to reenact the past, not to cause injury, but to demonstrate honor, faith, and connection with the sacred world. Sumba is not only beautiful in its scenery, but also beautiful in the way the people here still live with tradition, with the land. When you stand on a deserted beach of the island, listening to the waves crashing on the rocks and the wind blowing through the sun-baked grasslands, you will understand there are places not meant to change, but to remember forever. Leaving the wild and majestic beauty of Sumba, our footsteps gradually lighten when we arrive at a place that does not need to speak loudly to be heard. Hangzhou, a soft pearl lying on the Chuntang River of China. This is not a city for tourism, but an ancient melody that needs to be enjoyed with tranquility. The pagodas hanging on the cliffs do not challenge the sky, but gently communicate with it with their breath. The stone steps winding around the mountain do not rush to lead anywhere, just invite you to slow down, observe, and feel each wave of Longjing tea fragrance in the air. From afar, the city is like a watercolor painting, where the green of the tea hills blends with the gray of the ancient rocks. The mossy yellow of the pagoda roofs blends with the afternoon sunlight. Hangzhou does not appear as a destination, but as a memory, gentle, slow, and makes the heart quiet with emotion. This is a place where only those who walk very softly, look deeply, and listen very slowly can touch its hidden beauty. A beauty that does not need to be recorded, just kept in the heart. From the ancient silence of Hangzhou, the road continues to take us to a larger and more pristine land, Yunnan, where beauty is not on the map, but hidden deep in every fold of the terrain and memory. This is a land where nature and culture blend together, like two streams that never separate. The terraced fields like rolling rice waves on the mountainside, winding around the villages of the Hani and Yi people, where life is still measured by the sound of cowbells and the footsteps of children running on the red soil. In Dali, the afternoon light falling on Erhai Lake is like a golden dream reflecting the green mountains, while in Shangri-La, the Tibetan temples shining on the snowy mountainside make people's hearts melt in the fragile breath of the altitude. The golden pine trees burn brightly in the late autumn sun. The snow falls lightly on the wooden roofs, and the wind blows through the valley like the song of the ancient mountains and forests. Yunnan does not tell stories with words. It tells them with the heartbeat of the earth, with the scent of tea, with the gentle touch between people and nature that has never been interrupted. And then, when we think we are familiar with the layered beauty of Yunnan, Zhangjiajie appears like a mythological story suddenly drawn straight into the sky. This place is not a mountain, but giant stone pillars growing straight from the ground, piercing through the clouds, standing upright like petrified gods after an unspeakable dream. Early in the morning, the mist rolls between the mountain crevices like living ink in an eternal ink painting, and the cable car weaves through each layer of clouds, taking us high not to admire, but to be still. The wind here does not blow strongly, but makes people's hearts sway, as if they are lost in a world that has never belonged to humans. Zhangjiajie has been the inspiration for fantasy worlds in cinema. But standing in the middle of that forest of stone pillars, we realize nothing is more magical than reality. Because there are places that do not need to be painted, their beauty is already legendary. And here, legends are not just for reading, but for entering. From the surreal stone pillars rising to the sky of Zhangjiajie, the journey continues to take us north, to a world where mountains plunge straight into the sea, and the light seems to never turn off. That is the Lofoten Archipelago, Norway, a wild and gentle peace in the middle of the Arctic Circle. Here, the sea is as clear as a mirror, reflecting the sharp mountain ranges like sleeping dragon teeth, while traditional red wooden houses nestle by the small bay, like loving touches on a giant natural painting. In the summer, the sun does not set. It just hangs forever on the horizon, dyeing the atmosphere with a warm yellow color, like memories that refuse to fade. In winter, the sky explodes in a magical blue-violet aurora, a cosmic whisper reserved for those who dare to venture to the edge of the world. Lofoten doesn't overwhelm. It slows the heart, because in the most isolated place, we feel more connected than ever, to the wind, to the sea, and to the quietest part of our souls. As the northern lights of Lofoten recede behind us, we enter a different land, wilder, quieter, where the wind seems to carry the call of ancient times. Stokksnes, in eastern Iceland, is a place where land, water, and sky merge into one in an indescribable, mysterious beauty. On the cold black sand, the Vestrahorn mountain range rises like the remains of a sleeping god, its sharp peaks seeming to pierce the clouds, reflecting on the water like a broken mirror. There is no human voice, only the sound of the wind whistling through the reed grass, the gentle sound of the waves, and the eerie feeling of standing at the edge of the world. When the aurora suddenly sweeps across the sky, a hazy green hue falls on the sand and mountains, creating a picture that does not belong to any era. In Stocksness, one does not find answers, only ancient questions buried in the rocks, in the wind, and in one's own deep silence. Nestled in the shadow of the majestic 7,710-meter-high Rakaposhi Mountain, Karimabad is not just another Pakistani mountain town, but a place where nature and history are interwoven like an ancient tapestry. From the moment you set foot here, you will feel a strange peace amidst the snow-capped mountains and the endless green valleys. More than 4,000 years of civilization have left their mark on every stone, every steep step winding around the village. Once a bustling trading hub of the Silk Road, connecting Asia and Europe. In spring, Karimabad seems to awaken in a brilliant peach breeze. Ancient peach orchards bloom under the gentle sunlight, creating a magical, picturesque scene. But what makes Karimabad truly different is the people, the warm-hearted Hunza people, who still preserve the Shandur Polo Festival at an altitude of more than 3,700 meters, the world's highest polo tournament, where sport and tradition float together in the clouds. Karimabad is not for the hurried tourist. It is for those who dare to stop, listen to the slow beat of time, and let their hearts melt in the pristine beauty of a land that has never been forgotten. If Karimabad is a place where time stands still amidst the eternal mountains, then Bhaktapur is a city where the past still lives and breathes through every baked brick, every hand kneading ceramics. Less than 20 kilometers from Kathmandu, but stepping into Bhaktapur is like stepping into another world, quiet, ancient, and full of the quiet colors of time. This city is a living museum of Himalayan art and soul. Pottery making in Bhaktapur is more than just labor. It is a memory passed down from generation to generation for more than a millennium. The spinning of clay, the hand-baked pots without molds, are testament to a culture that refuses to be forgotten. The narrow alleys lead you through 55 temples, each one a love song in stone and wood, depicting ancient beliefs and beauty. And when the festival season arrives, especially during Biscuit Jatra, Bhaktapur transforms into a mystical stage where tradition and faith explode in light and sound. Here, not only the landscape, but also the air carries a sacred depth, as if every brick recalls the footsteps of ancient caravans on the Silk Road. Leaving Bhaktapur with the echoes of temple bells and the lingering scent of terracotta on our hands, we arrive at Yazd, a desert gem in the heart of Iran, where time has not only stopped, but also turned into earthen walls, hot winds, and fairy tale shadows. This city is unlike any other in the world. It needs no embellishment. The light brown of the adobe walls, nearly a meter thick, the narrow alleys winding under the scorching sun, tell us timeless stories. Yazd is the heart of Zoroastrianism, an ancient religion that once spread throughout Mesopotamia and Persia. Here, the towering towers of silence in the desert still whisper of a belief to let the dead return to nature in peace. Nowhere else can you feel so clearly the fragile boundary between life and death, between dust and soul. And despite the scorching sun, the dirt roads still invite you to walk on, to get lost in a quiet labyrinth where merchants, poets, and pilgrims once exchanged not only goods, but also their aspirations for life and ideas of beauty. Yazd is a city that has forgotten nothing, and that you will never forget either. Continuing the legendary light of Samarkand, we head to Bukhara, a city that seems to be woven from ancient prayers and echoes of dead caravans. If Samarkand is a sparkling gem, then Bukhara is a treasure with a quiet, profound beauty, like a prayer carved on a stone wall, lingering in the afternoon sun. Bukhara has lived for more than 2,000 years in the heart of the Central Asian desert, and through the centuries, it has maintained the sacred breath of a center of learning, religion, and trade that was once comparable to Baghdad or Cairo. The madrasas with dark blue domes, the minarets that tower over time, and the caravanserai where camels once knelt to rest, all seem to be immersed in nostalgic light. In Bukhara, every road leads to a quiet square, where the ancients once read poetry, wrote books, watched the moon, and talked under the shade of ancient fig trees. And in that silence, you will hear the strangest sounds, the whispers of knowledge, of faith, and of souls that have never left this land. Bukhara is not only preserved, it is alive, like a door opening to the sacred memory of humanity. The journey gradually moves north, where Almaty, Kazakhstan's largest city, shines like a symphony of modernity and antiquity between the steppe and the white snow. Almaty is not a quiet stop on the Silk Road, but a place where cultural currents collide, swirling into memories, into life, and into a city. Lying at the foot of the Zylysky Alatau mountain range, Almaty has the appearance of a city that is both majestic and profound. Today, it bustles with lights and youthful life, but just a little way out of the center, you will touch the layers of history. traces of the ancient Scythians, the markets where camels once stopped, and the stone roads where the old merchants' carts rolled, carrying silk, precious gems, and hope. In the spring, the valley is full of white plum blossoms, making Almaty magical, like a city in a dream. And when you stand on the top of Koktob Hill, looking at the city stretching under the snow, you will see Almaty is not just a city, it is the intersection of time, where the past and the present live, breathe and tell stories together. From Almaty shining under the white snow, the journey back to the east, where the Gobi Desert cracks under the scorching sun, and the Mogao caves appear like a miracle carved into the cliffs. Located near the ancient city of Dunhuang, the Mogao grottos are more than just a Buddhist shrine. They are a sacred library of more than a millennium of human art, belief, and memory. More than 700 caves are carved into the cliffs, where every wall and every ceiling is covered with paintings, Buddha statues, and motifs from the dreams of the ancient world. Here, Indian, Chinese, Persian, and Central Asian art intersect in a magical way, as if the Silk Road itself had stopped, bowed, and left its soul in every color and rhythm. Mogao is not just an archaeological site, but a place where you can hear ancient chants echoing through the dust of time. In the darkness of the caves, as your eyes adjust to the dim colors, you will see the stars of culture, sparkling, ancient, and eternal. At the end of the desert, Mogao reminds us that art, faith, and light can exist even in cold stone and darkness. From the sacred darkness of Mogao, where ancient colors still resonate in the rocks, we head southwest to Al-Ula, the desert land of Saudi Arabia, where hot winds and red rocks have preserved the secrets of the Nabatean civilization for thousands of years. Hidden among the giant rocks, Al-Ula is like a fossil kingdom, where time does not pass, but settles in every rough cliff, every sunburned hill. At the heart of that land is Madain Saleh, Arabia's first World Heritage Site, known as the Petra of the South. The mausoleums are carved directly into the sandstone mountains, with intricately carved facades, the resting place of ancient merchants who crossed the Arabian Peninsula with camel caravans carrying incense, jade, and dreams. Al-Ula was once an important trading post between the Levant and the East, and today it still retains its solemn, sacred appearance. In the golden sunset of the desert, standing before a giant, nameless mausoleum, you will feel the eternity in the fragility, where sand, stone, and human memories breathe together under a sky that has witnessed thousands of years of longing. From the fiery mountains of Dangxia, the journey continues to Jiayuguan Pass, the final gate of the Great Wall, where ancient China ends and the Gobi Desert begins. in that dry and vast space, a towering fortress appears, as a testament to the iron will and aspiration to preserve a civilization from the fierce winds from the north. Built during the Ming Dynasty, Jiayuguan is not only a defensive structure, but also a place of tearful farewells. Caravans of merchants, soldiers, and poets have passed through here, leaving behind a last look at their homeland before venturing into the vast and dangerous land ahead. The ancient stone path below the fortress is still there, like a thread connecting the memories of generations of people who have gone and never returned. Standing on the wall looking out into the distance, where the mountains and hills blend into the sand and dust, one cannot help but feel small before the silent flow of history. Jiayuguan is not exactly a destination. It is the boundary between safety and adventure, between the familiar and the unknown, between a past full of voices and a vast, silent future. Passing Jiayuguan, the end of a civilization and the beginning of a challenge, we enter a completely different space. Qinghai Lake, China's largest saltwater lake, located at an altitude of more than 3,200 meters on the Tibetan Plateau. Amidst the arid land and the relentless wind, Qinghai appears like a green dream. The lake's surface stretches nearly 4,000 square kilometers, reflecting the vast sky and distant snow-capped mountains. This place is not just a scenic spot, but a sacred symbol of heaven and earth. For thousands of years, Qinghai has been a stopover for caravans on the Northern Silk Road, where people not only rest, but also find spiritual purification. Migratory birds hover over the lake, wildflowers bloom every summer, and ancient stories from the Tibetans or Hui people living around the lake all create a space that is not only beautiful, but also sacred. Every year, the cultural festival by the lake is held, as an affirmation that in the midst of this desolate nature, people still sing, still remember, and still live in harmony with the endless beat of Qinghai's land and sky. Leaving Qinghai Lake with the echoes of the plateau wind and the sound of birds flying over the water, we head southeast to meet Chaka Salt Lake, a place known as the Mirror of Heaven. Located in the heart of the Qinghai Province grassland, this salt lake is not deep, only about 0.9 to 2.4 meters, but it stretches out endlessly, reflecting the sky, white clouds, and the lonely figure of a traveler standing in the middle of the universe. Chaka is not noisy. It is as quiet as a whisper of time, as if the water itself is also thinking. On clear days, you can see yourself melting into the clouds, no longer distinguishing between reality and dream. In this place, footsteps seem to leave no trace. Only the mind becomes light, as if it has shaken off the dust of the world. More than 3,000 years ago, Chaka was a place where salt was mined for ancient dynasties. And to this day, The people here still hold traditional salt festivals as a way to remember the life that is nourished from the earth. Chaka is not just a lake, but an invisible mirror reflecting the soul of the pilgrim, where reality and surrealism meet in a moment of silence. From the surreal mirror of Chaka Salt Lake, the journey takes us out of China and across the Central Asian steppe to Issyk Kul Lake, the emerald jewel of Kyrgyzstan, nestled between the eternally snow-capped mountains of the Tian Shan Range. Despite being more than 1,600 meters above sea level, the lake has never frozen, as if inside it is a warm fire that burns through the harsh winter. Issyk Kul carries not only majestic beauty, but also an ancient soul. For more than 2,000 years, the lake has been a legendary stop on the Silk Road, where caravans stop to take in water, rest, and exchange not only goods, but also stories, beliefs, and dreams of adventure. The lake stretches for nearly 185 kilometers, like a giant mirror embracing the clouds and sky, reflecting the deep blue of nature and the quiet color of history. In the salty water of Issyk Kul, there are more than 24 endemic fish species, creatures that only exist here. In the midst of that vast space, you seem to be lost in a silent, epic song, where nature needs no words, but is still enough to make the traveler's heart beat with every beat of longing. From the deep blue surface of Issyk Kul Lake, like a heart beating silently among the mountains, we continue our journey to Samarkand, where the Central Asian sunlight seems to illuminate ancient dreams. Samarkand is more than just a city. It is a living legend in the heart of Uzbekistan, where every emerald dome, every sparkling tile tells the epic story of the Silk Road. Stepping into Registan Square, you will feel like you are lost in a universe of color, shape, and light, where Islamic architecture reaches its absolute sophistication. This was once the center of learning, science, and art of the Islamic world, where astronomers, philosophers, and merchants from all over stopped, not only to rest, but to exchange knowledge, faith, and hope. Samarkand is a symphony between Persia, India, and Central Asia, a place where culture, religion, and spirituality intersect. Within those green walls, the whispers of ancient travelers still echo, as if time has never left this place. And you will understand. There are cities that do not only exist in space, but also live forever in the memory of humanity. From the earthen walls of Yazd echo the whispers of the desert. The journey takes us to Gyeongju, a city where culture is not only preserved, but also illuminates every leaf and every tile in the Korean sunrise. Gyeongju was once the capital of the glorious Silla Kingdom, and today it still lives with ancient memories. A vast open-air museum where time flows as slowly as the temple bells ringing down on ancient tombs. More than 5,000 relics are scattered across this peaceful land, including dozens of pagodas, temples, and royal tombs covered in green grass, as if nature itself bowed before the sacredness of the past. The Gyeongju National Museum holds more than 1 million artifacts, but it is the space outside, with its rounded hills, stone gates, and blooming cherry blossoms, that truly moves people. In Gyeongju, everything speaks in the gentle language of reverence. Reverence for ancestors, reverence for beauty, and reverence for the endless flow of history. And in the moment standing before an ancient pagoda, amidst the wind and the whispers of ancient Silla, you will understand. There are cities that not only exist, but inspire like living poems. If Gyeongju is an ancient poem whispered in the spring breeze, then Ulaanbaatar is a harsh epic of the steppe, where the biting cold only highlights the fierce vitality of the people here. Amidst vast grasslands and silver-gray mountains, Ulaanbaatar, the coldest capital in the world, is not only the political center of Mongolia, but also the place where the breath of Genghis Khan still echoes through the smoke of nomadic camps. In winter, the temperature can drop below -40 degrees Celsius, but inside the traditional GR tents, fires still burn, and ancient stories are still told through the eyes. The Naadam Festival, held here every year, is not just a sports festival, but a rebirth of the spirit of the steppe. Wrestling, archery, horse racing, all come alive from the time of the great Mongols. Ulaanbaatar is not flashy, but it is authentic to the core. In that wild and harsh, people find a culture that is not forgotten, but still alive, as strong as the steppe under the snow wind. And then you suddenly understand. There are places where the colder the human heart is, the warmer it is. Leaving Ulaanbaatar with the echoes of the steppe wind and the distant sound of horse hooves, the journey takes us south to Yadan National Geopark in China, where the desert speaks with its strange rock shapes and absolute silence. Here, nature does not invite with gentleness, but with the wildness of prehistoric times. Temperatures can reach up to 58 degrees Celsius, and each hot wind seems to cut deep into memory, reminding us of an era when only rocks and wind ruled the world. The rocks here are not just rocks. They take the shape of fortresses, ships, ghosts of ancient cities that were buried in the sands of time. People call this place Yadan Ghost Town because of the eerie silence and the feeling of walking among a forgotten civilization. But strangely, in this harsh landscape, We can clearly see the footprints of ancient people, merchants, explorers, travelers who once followed the Silk Road through this place, leaving behind legends that have now turned to dust. Yunnan is not a place to look, but to listen. Listen to the whispers of the ancient wind and feel the smallness but pride of humans before eternity. From the howling winds in Yunnan, the journey continues to take us to the east, where Zhangye National Geological Park shines like a dream painted by the brush of nature. If Yunnan is the deep music of the desert, then Dangxia is a colorful symphony, where every mountain, every hill is dyed in layers of red, yellow, orange, purple like giant silk ribbons winding between the sky and the earth. Formed over more than 24 million years of formation, the sedimentary rock layers here are like pages of ancient history pressed into each grain of soil. At dusk, as the sun slants downwards, the mountains transform, the colors come alive, the light breathes, and the wind carries the echoes of ancient caravans that once stopped here on their journey across Asia. Not only is Dangxia surreally beautiful, it also reminds us of the great connection between man and nature, between art and geology, between the invisible of time and the visible of all things. This is not simply a scenic spot. It is an eternal painting, where the past, the present, and the wonder coexist in a moment of light.